Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. It's wonderful to have all of you here joining us today. And I can already see in the chat that you are joining us from all over, and that is always really, really fun to see. I am Dr. Marie Holloway-Chuck, and I will be your host for our webinar today. This is a webinar presented by Reviving Veterinary Medicine, and we are so glad to have you, all of us, for this together for this really important conversation on overcoming imposter syndrome. I know this is a topic we get asked about a lot. This is a topic certainly that I have dealt with a lot in my career, so we're really excited to bring this to you today. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out and thank you to our sponsor, ScribeNote. Sponsor is supporting this event, and we are so appreciative for their commitment to advancing veterinary well-being and providing tools that make our veterinary lives easier. I have been a user of ScribeNote for many years, and ScribeNote has just been an exceptional partner for the Reviving Vet Med podcast and for many other events that we have put on. So we're so grateful to have their support. I am really excited now to pass things over to our moderator for today. Ali Aspen is from ScribeNote, and Ali, the floor is all yours.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Marie. Hi, everyone. I'm Ali Aspen. I am the Customer Experience Product Manager here at ScribeNote. I started my career in vet med about 15 years ago, working as a technician. Then I founded the first veterinary medical scribe program in the US at Veterinary Emergency Group in 2019, scaling it to over 100 scribes across about 40 hospitals and cutting clinical documentation time by over 80%. That work led me to ScribeNote, the first AI scribe, which is amazing. Everybody try it. Where I now focus on making sure that our AI actually works for the veterinary professionals that use it through customer research, beta programs, and spending as much time in hospital as I possibly can. I really try to stay close to our customers and listen carefully because when the product is easier to use and you feel heard, we've done our job. That same passion for supporting the human side of medicine is why I am so thrilled to announce today's speaker. Dr. Natalie Feynman is here to discuss overcoming imposter syndrome in vet med, a positive intelligence approach. Natalie is a seasoned veterinarian with 34 years experience in both ER and GP medicine, now dedicated to helping her fellow veterinary heroes optimize their well-being. Having personally experienced the depths of burnout, Natalie brings an authentic and practical perspective to her work as a certified coach. Natalie works with veterinary professionals to build the unconditional self-worth needed to overcome imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and people-pleasing. She's dedicated to helping her colleagues rediscover the original passion and purpose that called them into vet med in the first place. With unique tools grounded in neuroscience, Natalie is on a mission to make vet med more sustainable and enjoyable for the profession, one breakthrough at a time. During the webinar today, Natalie is going to dive into the saboteurs, like the perfectionist stickler or the boundary challenged pleaser, that often drive our success but ultimately hurt our mental health. If you haven't yet, you can still take the free saboteurs assessment at the link in the chat to follow along. Natalie, we are so excited to learn from you today. Take it away.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to be here. And I really just want to start by thanking Dr. Marie Holloway-Chuck and the whole Reviving Vet Med community for caring enough to have me here today and for the incredible work that you're doing for our whole profession. So if you haven't already, I definitely encourage you to take the saboteur assessment. You can find it by scanning this QR code. And if you haven't had time to do it yet, just do it after. It's not required, but it will definitely make the material that we're talking about today more meaningful and more relevant to you personally. And it also might explain a few things about that coworker who's driving you crazy. So before I get started, I wanted to introduce positive intelligence. The content from this talk is coming from the research of Shirzad Chamine and his positive intelligence program. It is grounded in neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, performance science, and positive psychology. So if you like a little bit of data with your woo, you're in the right place. So Dr. Marie is as we all know, very passionate about improving well-being in our profession. And the positive intelligence perspective really gives us the perspective, and specific actionable tools to understand why we struggle and what we can do about it. So this isn't just another be kinder to yourself talk. This is brain science with a practical toolkit. And my goal is to show you a little bit of a different perspective on imposter syndrome than what you may have heard before, and hopefully to leave you with a clear roadmap towards taking your power back. So let's start by defining, what do we mean by imposter syndrome? This is an intense psychological experience that is often characterized by feelings of inadequacy. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not knowledgeable enough. I'm not qualified enough, or I'm not fill in the blank enough to do this job that I'm doing. There's also this persistent self-doubt, constantly questioning yourself, even though you may have a mountain of previous successes behind you. And then there's something that we call distorted attribution bias. And what this means is, where do you give the credit for your success and where do you place the blame for your failures? Because with imposter syndrome, the narrative that we tell ourselves is when other people have a win, it's because they earned it and they deserve it. But my success was only because somebody else helped me or because of just some random stroke of luck that'll never happen again. And when other people make mistakes, well, that's understandable and forgivable, but my mistakes, those are disasters. So in a nutshell, what imposter syndrome is this fear of being exposed as a fraud combined with this overarching sense of I'm just not good enough. So studies actually show that 70% of people have experienced imposter syndrome at some point in their lives. And of the remaining 30%, I suspect at least some of those may be suffering from delusional overconfidence. But here's the good news. If you have imposter syndrome, you are not the only one. You're actually in the majority. The bad news is that most of us are too ashamed to admit it, so we suffer in silence. If you currently don't have imposter syndrome yourself, I can promise you that you work either with or even for somebody who does. So before we get started, I would like to introduce you to the only person that I have ever met who has never suffered from imposter syndrome. That's my boyfriend, Frodo. And with a lot of work and maybe the right therapist someday, I hope to be a little bit more like him. So why is imposter syndrome a problem? Because it isn't always. It's actually normal if you're new at something. So if you're a new grad starting a new job, or you're recently promoted into leadership and you maybe haven't had experience in that arena, it would be kind of weird if you didn't feel a little bit of the imposter. And it can actually be helpful when that discomfort of feeling like an imposter actually inspires you to learn and improve. But where it becomes harmful is where it moves in and never leaves, when it has you overworking to compensate for your supposed shortcomings, when it makes you afraid to admit your mistakes, afraid to ask for help, or afraid to speak up in those important conversations. And when it starts to affect your relationships, your health, and the way you treat yourself. Because our jobs are already stressful enough without all of that. Now, Dr. Marie talks a lot about sustainable careers in veterinary medicine and creating a profession where everyone can actually thrive. And imposter syndrome directly undermines that, because when the imposter has control, it makes work that should feel fulfilling into work that feels depleting and defeating. And no one spends 30 or 40 years in a career if that's how they feel every day. So the voice of the imposter tells you you should be grateful for what you have, even if that's not what you really want. You should stay with a safe bet instead of taking risks that could have big payoffs. You should avoid outside the box thinking, because that could open you up to rejection or criticism. And it makes you rely on validation from other people so that you can feel good about yourself. And that makes it easier for other people to take advantage of you. But above all, the imposter wants you to stay safe and to avoid the appearance of vulnerability, because if other people see that, they'll lose trust and confidence in you, right? Well, let's think about what makes someone trustworthy. Because the imposter tells us that if we want to inspire trust, we have to project confidence and never show that we're feeling uncertain, We have to never make mistakes and never admit being wrong. It is not even humanly possible to live up to that. But our fear of not being good enough makes us put this insane pressure on ourselves, and that is exhausting. And the sad part is that the more we try to be like this, the less trust other people will have in us. Because trying to look in control all the time makes us about as relatable and approachable as that DEA inspector with the clipboard and something to prove. So let me pause right here and ask a question. How much trust do you have in me right now? You've known me for about 10 minutes. How much do you trust me as a speaker, as a coach, as a fellow veterinarian on a scale of 1 to 10? You don't have to tell me, just pick a number. And while you are thinking about that, I want to share a little secret with you, because I'm going to confess that being in front of all of you right now, knowing how accomplished and well-known Dr. Marie is, and also that I am so new at this being a speaker thing that I only just had my first ever in-person speaking engagement less than 2 months ago. So imposter syndrome is exactly how I feel right now. So let me ask you again, after hearing that, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate how much trust and confidence you have in me now? So drop it into the chat. Do you trust me less, or do you trust me more than you did 10 minutes ago after I shared my little confession with you? So it looks like the trend is more. Some people saying the same. So for those of you who said more, just take a moment to process why you feel that way. And for the people who said less, thank you for your honesty. But the most important thing that I want you to take away from this talk is that vulnerability and authenticity are the real currency of trust. It is what makes you human and approachable, because real courage is not the absence of self-doubt. It is feeling that self-doubt and doing the hard thing anyway. And when you let other people see that, they will ride through the gates of hell for you. So allow me to introduce you to your imposter. Now, yours might look a little different. Mine might look and sound a little bit like my mother, but this guy or girl lives in your limbic system. It is a survival instinct that is pre-programmed into your brain. Its only job is to keep you safe, but it only knows how to motivate you through fear. The judge is the voice of the imposter. It is the master saboteur. It's the one that's not included in your saboteur assessment. It uses your fear of unworthiness to keep you small so that predators and bullies don't notice you as you steal a few crumbs in the background. It stops you from doing anything that might expose you to criticism, like speaking up for yourself or disagreeing with your boss or changing the way it's always been done. The judge tells you that if you make a mistake or your new idea doesn't work or you speak the uncomfortable truth to your boss, then bad things will happen and no one will trust you again. Your judge's job is to protect you from risk, and it sees you as the one creating that risk. So it threatens you with disaster until you're nervous enough to take action to confront or prevent or get away from the bad thing, whether that's failure to achieve ideal results or criticism from other people or making a mistake that exposes your humanity. Now, what kind of action you take depends on which accomplice saboteur is your strongest, and that is where that assessment comes in handy. So brain studies have actually found that we as human beings have 9 distinct kinds of stress response patterns. Everyone has a few. I have them all. And the judge instigates these accomplice saboteurs by creating the fear, by threatening you with the bad thing, failure, criticism, embarrassment, loss of credibility. The list goes on. And once you're feeling uncomfortable enough, one of these accomplice saboteurs is going to swoop in with a so-called solution that's going to come at a price. And that price is paid with your happiness, your performance, and your relationships. And that is why we call them saboteurs. So I'm going to take you on a quick tour. And as I introduce each one, I encourage you, write down the name of one person that that saboteur reminds you of. And don't forget to include yourself. So for each one of these guys, I'm going to show you how it originates actually from a set of character strengths that are unique to you. how it hijacks those strengths and uses them against you, how it pretends to solve the problem of I'm not good enough, what that solution actually costs you, how that saboteur impacts the people around you, and how it actually perpetuates imposter syndrome by the way it hijacks your thoughts and behaviors. Now, each one of these saboteurs creates its own self-fulfilling prophecy. It promises to help, but it really just creates more of the exact problem that it's supposedly helping you solve. So, introducing the avoider saboteur. This is the one who's been meaning to reconcile those drug logs since 2019. Now, the thing I want you to remember about saboteurs in general is don't look at them as a representation of what's wrong with you. They are really just your unique personal strengths, but hijacked and used against you. So you can kind of think of them as just way too much of a good thing. They solve a short-term problem at the expense of bigger long-term consequences. So the strength of an avoider is being a naturally easygoing, pleasant, and positive person who values peace and harmony, somebody who's flexible and adaptable. But the saboteur takes advantage of those strengths and it turns them into someone who only wants to do things that are easy or enjoyable and who procrastinates and hides from things that feel uncomfortable. Now, the avoider solves the I'm not good enough problem by telling you to procrastinate because you can't fail if you don't try. It will downplay the importance of things that you don't want to face, or it'll just pretend that there's no problem at all. And I think we have labeled that as toxic, excuse me, toxic positivity. Some of you have probably experienced that. So the real cost of living with an avoider saboteur. Important jobs go unfinished or just kind of thrown together at the last minute. And unfortunately, problems that get neglected tend to get bigger and more complicated with time, which creates even more stress over the long run. But our saboteurs affect the people around us too. So if you're living with an avoider saboteur, other people may lose trust in you because they don't believe that you will actually do anything about the problems and the concerns that they bring you. And your imposter gathers even more evidence for the not good enough narrative. Because when you avoid the things that make you uncomfortable, you never get to grow your skills or your confidence. And that's where the self-fulfilling prophecy starts. Because remember, these saboteurs are triggered by stress. So the stress and the worry of these looming deadlines and all the things you've been avoiding makes you want to avoid even more, which creates even bigger problems and more stress down the road. Next, the controller, the only one who knows how to get anything done around here. The strength of a controller is this real natural leadership ability, decisiveness, and the drive to make things happen. Controllers are action-oriented and results-driven. But the saboteur turns that into an anxiety-based need to take charge and to control the people and the situations around you so that you can force the outcome to be the one that you want. And it makes you believe that people need to be directed and that they're actually grateful when you take over. So the controller tries to solve the not good enough problem by driving you to always be the one that gets the results so that no one can criticize you. But the real cost to yourself is this constant stress and mistrust of the people around you because micromanaging means everything is your responsibility. So you're spread too thin, trying to be in 3 places at once. Your whole self-worth depends on the results that you produce, and the saboteur is always moving the goalposts. So there's a really high risk of burnout. Now, for the other people that have to live and work with a controller, they resent being controlled. It sends the message that you don't trust them. So they think that if you're just going to push them out of the way, why risk showing any initiative? And that is where the controller self-fulfilling prophecy starts. You push, other people pull back and shut down. The saboteur sees that as proof of why you have to step in and take over, or nothing ever gets done around here. The controlling behavior escalates with stress, and that pushes people away. And this feeds the imposter because the truth is that most things in life, including other people's behavior, is not controllable. And that constant uncertainty threatens your value as being the one who always gets things done. The hyperachiever, the one that always has to win at everything. If you are a hyperachiever, you have drive, you have ambition, and a natural ability to succeed. You set high goals and you reach them consistently. But the saboteur attaches your whole self-worth to your achievements, and each one has to be even more impressive than the last. So the hyperachiever tries to solve the I'm not good enough problem with constant and ever escalating achievements to make you feel valuable and earn respect. But the cost to yourself is your achievements are never enough. The saboteur always has you looking for a bigger mountain to climb next. This is exhausting and stressful. So hyperachievers tend to have a lot of workaholic tendencies and a high risk of burnout. And for the people around you, when you always need to win, that means someone else on your team loses. And other people resent feeling like they're just kind of stepping stones on your way to your next big achievement because it's all about you. So the self-fulfilling prophecy of this saboteur is your self-worth depends on constant bigger and better achievements. So you alienate the people around you when they get tired of living in your shadow. Your support system crumbles. You drive yourself even harder because no one's helping you. And eventually you drive yourself right off a cliff. This reinforces the imposter because it keeps your self-esteem dependent on earning respect from other people instead of learning to respect yourself because of who you already are. Hyperrational. So if you have ever thought that someone you work with could be a cyborg, you might already know this person. If this is you, you probably have a brilliant analytical mind. You're logical, objective, and intellectually gifted. So complicated problems are probably fun for you. But the saboteur corrupts that into a belief that emotions are weakness, yours and everyone else's. So you work hard to avoid even the appearance of vulnerability by rejecting any emotional connection. The hyperrational tries to solve the I'm not good enough problem by using superior logic and rational thinking as the path to success, and it attaches your self-esteem to being perceived as an expert. The real cost, though, to yourself, if this is you, you may feel constant frustration with other people's inconvenient emotions and fatigue from suppressing your own emotions. For other people, they often feel intimidated and looked down on by someone who prides themselves on intellectual superiority. They're too worried about protecting themselves from your judgment to risk being their authentic selves in your presence. And so the hyperrational feeds the imposter syndrome by damaging those relationships and sabotaging your support systems. For example, I might save somebody's marriage today. Have you ever come home to find your partner wanting to vent about everything that went wrong with their day, only for them to get even more upset when you suggest perfectly logical solutions? That's because you're having two different conversations. You're in hyper-rational problem-solving mode. They're in emo mode, looking for connection and validation. So next time this happens, don't try to fix anything. Just offer your support and understanding first, and then ask if they want your suggestions. So avoid the self-fulfilling prophecy of the hyperrational. You cannot suppress your negative emotions without also suppressing the positive ones. And a hyperrational approach alienates the people that you care about and robs you of the best parts of the human experience. Hypervigilant. This is the person that pulls the crash cart out for the emergency that's wagging its tail in the lobby. If this is you, you have a genuine talent for seeing problems before they happen. You're prepared for everything. You are loyal, dependable, reliable, and hardworking. But your your hypervigilant saboteur turns your heightened awareness into this exhausting 24/7 problem-seeking alarm system that never turns off. When somebody has a new idea, your mind instantly goes to why that won't work instead of how could that work? The hypervigilant tries to solve the not good enough problem through this constant vigilance for problems, real or imaginary, as a way to avoid failure and trying to predict and prepare for every possible thing that could go wrong. But the cost, as you can probably imagine, is that this constant what-ifing and problem-seeking is incredibly exhausting. You're always bracing for the other shoe to drop. And any success you do have just feels too good to be true. Other people get tired of the constant anxiety and they will eventually learn to avoid someone with a hypervigilant saboteur when they realize that no amount of soothing and reassuring will ever be enough. And this constant fault finding discourages people from sharing new ideas because they know you're just going to poke holes in everything and make them regret it. And that's the self-fulfilling prophecy. You're trying to keep everyone safe by staying alert for problems before they happen. But when a real problem does happen, you're so exhausted that you can't deal with it effectively and you've driven off the people who could have helped you. So the threat that never happens costs you just as much as the one that does. And this feeds your imposter syndrome because it ties your whole self-worth to your ability to see trouble coming before it happens. And what if you miss something? The pleaser, the one who won't let anyone help her and then pouts because nobody helped her. I'm laughing because this is me. So if you have a pleaser saboteur, your strengths are that you are deeply empathic, sensitive, kind, and caring. You have a natural gift for sensing what other people need and responding with authentic generosity. But the saboteur says that your empathy is only for other people and you're not worthy until you earn your value through service and self-sacrifice. You would rather be liked than endure the discomfort of challenging people, even if it's for their own good. So the pleaser promises to solve the not good enough problem by pushing you to earn your self-worth through acts of selflessness, trying to make yourself indispensable by fixing and rescuing and helping everyone else, all at your own expense. The cost to yourself, exhaustion, depletion from this constant self-neglect, feeling hurt when other people don't recognize all that you've done for them or don't return that level of effort back to you, and feeling taken advantage of, even if other people didn't ask for the help that you gave them. For other people, most people don't trust a pleaser to say what needs to be said if it might be hard to hear. And they certainly don't trust a pleaser to do what needs to be done if it's going to hurt someone's feelings. Because to a pleaser, being liked is more important. So the saboteur reinforces this fear of being found unworthy because it needs to keep you unworthy to stay in control. And after decades of trying, I can promise you that putting yourself last will never create the success or the happiness that you want. Because no matter how many extra shifts I worked, how much sleep I sacrificed, or how many vacations I gave up, my bosses weren't any happier, and neither was I. Saying yes to everything does not make other people value or respect you. It teaches them that you are the easiest solution to their problem of the moment. And then we get frustrated when other people just learn to run straight to us whenever they need something instead of taking initiative, never realizing that we are the ones that taught them to do that. And that's the self-fulfilling prophecy of the pleaser. You serve others to show them how valuable you are, but they take your sacrifice for granted. And when you don't get the appreciation that you're hoping for in return, the saboteur says, you haven't done enough yet. You need to try harder. The restless. Now, this is the one that's already answered 10 emails and watched 3 cat videos since I started talking today. If this is you, your strengths lie in your creative energy, your spontaneity, and your natural sense of curiosity. You bring this high level of enthusiasm to everything that you do. But the hijack is when your saboteur tells you that whatever you're doing right now is not interesting enough. Just keep looking for that next shiny object or a better job somewhere else. So the restless tries to solve the not good enough problem by promising that you can totally avoid stress by distracting yourself from anything that feels difficult or unpleasant. And you can avoid failure by just looking for something better instead of building on what you have. Now, the cost to you, if this is you, is that your lack of follow through actually sabotages your growth because you never get better at something if you never finish what you start. And to the people around you, that lack of attention to detail frustrates them because they feel like they can't trust you or they're afraid that they're probably going to have to step in and finish for you. So this reinforces the imposter because it makes you think that there's always something missing and that you just haven't looked for it hard enough. And there's the self-fulfilling prophecy because you never earn that self-pride and the personal satisfaction of achieving long-term goals and doing hard things because your attention is somewhere else. And the more you miss out, the harder you look. But the things that really matter were right in front of you the whole time. Now, the Stickler, this is the one that takes 20 minutes to shave your spay surgery because the edges need to be perfectly straight. If this is you, you have a gift for quality and precision, organization, and excellence. When something really matters, you produce outstanding work. But your Stickler hijacks that into a rigid insistence that everything must be to the highest standard, or it's a personal failure. B plus work is a death sentence to your reputation. So you triple check everything, even if it means staying hours after the end of your shift. So the Stickler tries to solve the not good enough problem by avoiding criticism by producing only the best quality work. And if you're not sure that you can do something well, don't even try. So you want to avoid failure by making sure that you get it right every time. Now, the cost to you is that your whole self-worth depends on achieving these unattainable standards. Any mistake is a direct threat to your value, and huge amounts of time are wasted with these details that don't matter to anyone but you, so you're always behind. And for other people, your behavior makes them think that you don't trust them. So they feel like they can never do anything right in your eyes, and eventually they stop trying because if they're going to be criticized anyway, why bother? And that creates the self-fulfilling prophecy of the Stickler. There's not enough hours in the day to get everything done to those standards. So other people give up and stop trying to please you because it's impossible, and you can't trust anyone else to do it right, so you have to do everything yourself. And this feeds the imposter because the need to get everything right all the time intensifies your fear of failure. You live with this constant dread that if even one thing goes wrong, all the respect that you've earned and all the success that you've created will fall apart. And the victim still complaining about that one time you took their parking spot 4 years ago. If this is you, your strengths are that you have a deep capacity for sensitivity and compassion. You have this high level of emotional intelligence and an appreciation of your own uniqueness in the world. Your victim saboteur twists that sensitivity into this narrative of helplessness. It's constantly whispering, bad things always happen to me, or no one knows what I have to go through. It keeps you focused on everything that's bad or unfair, so you stay stuck in your pain instead of building the resilience to move past it. So the victim solves the not good enough problem by trying to avoid the perception of failure by drawing attention to the unfairness of your personal situation. And it uses drama and complaining as a way to gain sympathy and support from other people. But the cost, this bad things always happen to me narrative makes you believe that all of your previous success could come crumbling down at any minute. And when good things happen, you don't believe it because you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. And for other people, that constant complaining and drama is exhausting, and so they eventually learn to avoid spending time around a victim. And that reinforces the imposter syndrome because the victim's always expecting disaster. So that this constant negativity drives people away who would have been your support system, which makes you feel even more isolated and reinforces that narrative that bad things really do always happen to me. All right, so have a look at the names that you wrote down after we went through these 9 accomplice saboteurs. Now that you know that these behaviors are actually stress and fear responses, I hope it helps you to have a little bit more empathy for the people around you. And now that you know why you do some of the things that you do, I hope it helps you to find a little more empathy for yourself. Because we are all human and we all have saboteurs. But let's consider what it really costs in the big picture because it causes a lot of unnecessary self-inflicted suffering. When your saboteur grabs the wheel, you are paying with energy that you don't have, relationships that could have supported you but aren't, confidence that should be growing but isn't, happiness that you've earned but can't enjoy, and precious time wasted on worry and dread and second guessing yourself. So you deflect compliments, you ask for you don't ask for what you deserve, and you tolerate other people that are trampling on your boundaries. Your saboteurs are weaponizing your self-doubt, but as I hope you are starting to see by now, It's not your weaknesses that are hurting you. It is your strengths that are being twisted and abused by your imposter. So the $1,000,000 question, what do you do? Unfortunately, there's no quick tip I can give you that will cure your imposter syndrome. Our judge and our saboteurs are hardwired survival programs, and they are not going anywhere. But I can show you how to start turning down the volume on their voices so they go from a shout to a whisper. And it all comes down to redefining what we mean by quality of life. Because whether you're at work or at home, you bring these patterns with you. They just wear different disguises. So I'd like to propose a new definition for what quality of life really is. Your quality of life is a direct result of how much time you spend on a daily basis in a state of peaceful, calm, and pleasant emotions versus how much time you spend feeling frustrated, overwhelmed, upset, stressed out, or any other kind of unpleasant emotion. So if we accept that new definition, then I have good news, because getting hijacked by saboteurs is part of being human. But the most effective way to improve your quality of life is by learning to reduce the frequency of your saboteur hijacks and how to recover faster when you do get hijacked. Now, I want to be honest. The saboteur behaviors that we just explored, avoiding, controlling, people-pleasing, perfectionism, overachieving, those are all symptoms. Those are not the root cause. When it comes to imposter syndrome, the saboteurs are responding to the real problem. And that is the lying voice of your judge telling you that you're a fraud, eating away at your self-worth, and keeping you afraid to fail. The judge activates the saboteurs. So until we learn how to weaken the judge, anything we try to do about the saboteurs just makes them pop up in new places like whack-a-mole. You can never be perfect enough. You can never achieve enough. You can never make other people happy enough to get rid of imposter syndrome. And the more you try, the more your saboteurs just keep moving the goalposts. So to break free from imposter syndrome, you have to rob the power from the lying voice of your judge. And that means moving from a transactional sense of self-worth, where you're over-functioning to earn your value, to an unconditional self-worth, where your natural gifts are the value. And believing to the core of your bones that even on your worst day, you will always be good enough. So let's talk about the brain science behind how we can do this. Now, this is an oversimplified diagram, but it shouldn't come as a shock to anyone here that we have two hemispheres of our brain, and they function very differently. The left brain thinks in languages and numbers. It is where all of our rational, analytical thought processes come from. And it's also where our stress and survival programs live, and that means that's where the saboteurs are. And because they all live in the same place, the more you try to think hard and figure out a rational solution to your problems or your stress, the more you're activating your saboteurs. Now, the right brain is a very different place. The right brain is nonverbal. It thinks in images and emotions. It has amazing powers of empathy, creativity, and curiosity. It's really good at big picture vision, and it is deeply connected to your sense of meaning and purpose. The right brain does not feel stress, and it is much better equipped to deal with challenges that involve emotions and relationships. And that's why we call it the sage mind. Now, as a left brain dominant society, we tend to overuse the analytical parts and we underuse the empathic and creative parts. And so the neural pathways that give us access to the right side of our brain have gotten a little old and rusty from neglect. But thanks to neuroplasticity, we can reactivate them even well into our 90s. It just takes time and patience and some intentional practice. Weakening the judge starts with learning to recognize its presence. And the dead giveaway is the negative emotions that it creates: stress, worry, frustration, resentment, fear, anxiety. But think about what really causes our emotions. Dr. Jill Bolte Taylor, she has a fantastic TED Talk called My Stroke of Insight, by the way. She is a Harvard-trained neuroscientist. Her research found that the hormones and neurotransmitters that cause our negative emotions only last in our body for about 90 seconds. And that's really important because If you're still feeling angry, upset, nervous, or stressed for more than 90 seconds, it means that there's a negative thought spiral that is keeping those emotions alive. That is your judge quietly turning the screws. The longer it keeps you upset, the more control it has over your thoughts and your actions. So when a client's yelling at you because you couldn't squeeze them in at the end of the day, it's normal to feel attacked. But if you're still rolling that conversation around in your head at dinner time or lying awake in bed at night, your judge has been berating you about how you're a bad person for saying no, or how dare they talk to you like that when you have a sick kid at home, or oh my God, what if they leave a bad review? Your judge has been inflicting hours of optional stress on you. And by our new definition, not only does that damage your quality of life, it also affects the people that you live and work with. So I'd like to introduce a simple 3-step process to rob the power from your judge, to demote it from being your worst bully into just some snarky heckler with nothing better to do. So step 1, at the first sign of an unpleasant emotion, stop and identify your judge. fMRI studies actually have found that just the act of labeling an unpleasant emotion instantly reduces its intensity. And it also teaches you that your thoughts and your emotions are not who you are, and they are not always true. Step 2, use self-command to shift your brain activation and encourage the power of your right brain. And step 3, choose a better response. Now I know everyone's like, what is she talking about with that step 2 thing? So here's the practice. We call this self-command. This is how we activate those neural pathways that help us engage with the right side of our brain. Because the problem is, how do you communicate with a part of your brain that has no language? The answer, unfortunately, is you have to stop thinking. And anyone who's ever tried meditation knows what a challenge that could be. But fortunately, there is a portable technique called self-command that anybody can learn. And the reason it works is a combination of these 2 skills: single sensory focus and present moment awareness. So single sensory focus, this is the act of bringing all your attention to one physical sensation of your body, something you can see, taste, smell, hear, or touch, including the physical sensations of whatever emotion that you're feeling. And present moment awareness, that's the act of keeping your attention focused on what is happening here and now, instead of rehashing something that happened 2 days ago or worrying about something that might happen tomorrow. Because up to 75% of our optional stress comes from letting our minds wallow in the past or run ahead into the future. Whatever you are thinking about will create an emotional reaction, and most of the time, whatever's upsetting us isn't happening right now. So these skills rebuild those dormant neural pathways that allow us to shift from our saboteur left brain activation to sage right brain activation. That lowers the volume on the noise of the saboteurs so that we can finally hear the whisper of our deeper wisdom and empathy. And that's what we call the voice of the sage. And I have good news for all my sticklers. You don't have to do it perfectly for it to work. If you've ever wondered why the inspiration that you get from all these self-help books and weekend workshops never seem to stick, it's because in order for lasting change to happen, you only need 20% learning. You need 80% practical application. And so here's the practical part. I'm going to guide us through an exercise that wakes up these sage neural pathways. And I invite you to try this with me for just 2 minutes. And even though we're on a webinar and you might be multitasking, I'm asking you to give me these 2 minutes. So close your browser tabs, put down your phone. This is for you. So before we start, think of something that is waiting for you when you get back to work, something you are not looking forward to, and give yourself a rating on a scale of 1 to 10 on how much you are dreading or resisting the idea of facing that thing when you get back. Okay, got it? Remember that number. And now I'm going to ask you close your eyes when you can and really focus your mind on what you are feeling. And I'm going to lead us through a technique called EFT tapping. So take the side of your hand, like the karate chop point, and just start tapping on it. And close your eyes and just really pay attention to what that feels like. And now come to the center of your forehead. Sides of your eyebrows. Just let your breathing relax. Under your eyes, right on your cheekbones. Really paying attention to what that feels like. Come underneath your nose. Under your lips, right in front of your chin. Down on your collarbones. Sides of your rib cage. On top of your head. And really pay attention to what sensations you're noticing. Keeping your eyes closed, just gently rub two fingertips together and see if you can pay attention so closely that you can actually feel the fingerprint ridges on both fingers. Okay, so that was just about 2 minutes. Now open your eyes and remember that thing that you weren't looking forward to when you get back to work. On that same scale of 1 to 10, how much resistance or dread are you feeling now? Drop a yes in the chat if your number improved, and drop a no if it didn't. And I can't see the chat, so if someone can let me know what's happening.
Lots of yeses coming up in the chat, Natalie.
Okay, thank you. All right. So what we just did was to use that sensory focus and that present moment awareness to practice waking up the right side of our brain and calming down the saboteur mind chatter that distracts our attention all day. And if you want to Google it later, this technique is called EFT tapping, and it is just one of 100 different ways that we can practice that skill of self-command to shift our brain activation. But how much good did 2 minutes really do? I want to share a true story. In 35 years of practice, including 24 in the ER, I have had some pretty gut-wrenchingly horrible days at work. I, in the past, would be an emotional wreck for up to 2 days after a really bad day at work before I felt like I could go back to work without having a nervous breakdown. And I still have days like that sometimes, but now, because of this practice, I can recover in 30 minutes instead of 48 hours. And I did the math. That is literally 1% of the time that it used to take me to recover from a bad or traumatic experience. Imagine what that has done for my quality of life just from this one simple exercise. So it's not about never getting stressed out again or never having another moment of self-doubt. It's about catching yourself before you fall all the way to the bottom of the swamp so you can climb out faster and have more time in the sunlight. And this is not just distracting yourself to feel better. This is literally rewiring your brain to shift into a different activation state that is infinitely better suited for handling real life challenges. They've actually done fMRI studies on people who practice this type of exercise, and it's just 1 to 2 minutes a day for a total of 15 minutes per day. And after 8 weeks of practice, they found measurable changes: less gray matter in the saboteur region of the left brain, more gray matter in the sage region of the right brain. And that translated to significantly less stress and faster recovery. So the key to overcoming imposter syndrome is interrupting the voice of your judge as often as possible by practicing self-command, an exercise like this or something similar, for just 30 seconds to 2 minutes at a time, every time you hear the whisper or feel the presence of your judge. This is the 80% practical application that I was talking about. And all the tips and tricks in the world won't help you escape imposter syndrome if you don't start by weakening the control of your judge. And if it seems like, oh, that'll take too long or it'll be too hard, think about this. Your brain is the most powerful and sophisticated supercomputer ever invented. It runs multiple simultaneous applications all day long. Parent, son or daughter, partner, friend, boss or team member, business owner, veterinarian, manager, caregiver, all the different hats that you wear every day are programs that are being executed by your supercomputer brain. And if it's running even some of the time on Saboteur OS, every one of those programs is being affected. But when you upgrade your mental operating system, all the programs run better. And that is the root cause cure for imposter syndrome. So I hope that this gave you a fresh perspective on this topic and that you will take your inspiration home and put it into practice. You woke up your sage mind today. Please don't let it go back to sleep. Because for your judge to stay in control, it needs to keep you thinking that you will never be good enough. But your sage knows that you already are. So grab these QR codes if you'd like more information about the science behind what we learned today, and if you want to connect with me after the webinar. For everyone who stayed to the end of this talk, I will offer you a free deep dive on your saboteur report, just you and me. And I'm also hosting a free workshop on how saboteurs contribute to burnout and wasted time and energy next Wednesday, the 29th. So scan the Take Me Home With You QR code if you're interested in that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so, so much, Natalie, for that insightful presentation. It's really great to understand the science behind what's happening and how we can actually affect that. So thank you.
My
And
pleasure.
we do have a couple questions already. So to start, the first one that I caught in the chat was, do sticklers or avoiders struggle with procrastination as a self-defense mechanism?
Absolutely. Yes. Avoiders and restless and sticklers, because so with the avoider, the procrastination is a way of not having to experience the stress at all until later. So we're trading these little moments of momentary stress relief for much bigger stress that comes later when we can't avoid the thing anymore. With the restless, it's more of like, I'm going to distract myself from this thing that I don't want to deal with. And with sticklers, it's like, I have to make everything perfect all the time. So if I'm not sure I can do it perfectly, I'm just going to not do it.
Mm, that makes perfect sense. All right, up next, if you self-identify as a hyper-rational, does that also mean that you are hyper arrogant?
Not necessarily, although that can be how other people perceive someone who tends to be hyper-rational. With the hyper-rational, there is this drive to pursue excellence and to be super knowledgeable on their area of expertise. It doesn't necessarily, to me, it doesn't necessarily mean arrogance, but when you combine that with this distancing yourself or rejection of emotions, that is definitely how it can be perceived by other people. And it's a defense mechanism, right? Because if you are fearful of engaging on an emotional level or thinking that this makes you look weak, then trying to appear superior and arrogant can sometimes be a defense mechanism too.
Mm. All right, next is is asking your partner, are you venting or are we problem solving, an effective solution in those moments?
So yeah, so that's the thing is when people just want to release their frustration or release their emotion, most of the time they're just looking for empathy and understanding. And because you don't live in their life, right? So you can never really fully understand all the factors that are going into what's making this so stressful or so unpleasant for them. So when you suggest solutions, they aren't always going to be a great fit, and it makes the other person feel like you really don't understand, which can sometimes escalate the frustration. So always lead with empathy. Always ask curious questions just to learn more about how the other person is feeling or what their experience was like. But always ask before you offer your solutions and your input. That's the same
Mm.
path.
I feel like I identify with that one so
Yeah.
hard. Thank you for that. Okay, and the last one I have for the moment is there a video that you like of the EFT tapping technique?
Absolutely. So the person that developed this technique, his name is Nick Ortner. And if you go to YouTube and just search for his name, Nick Ortner, you will find there's a 20-minute kind of a entry level introduction to EFT tapping, and there is so much more to it than what I showed you. But it's a really powerful technique, and the finger rubbing thing that I showed you at the end of it, that is something that I added. And the reason I do this is because after you've gone through this tapping sequence, most of the time people are going to feel much more calm and much more focused and less stressed. And doing this finger rubbing technique while you're really paying attention to the sensations of your calm emotions, this creates an association. Now, when I first started my training in positive intelligence, I was like, what the heck is this? This is stupid. This doesn't do anything. This is all a bunch of hype. But I was going through the program with some friends of mine. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to do it to say I did it and check the box. And so I was doing this for like 4 weeks going, this is stupid. This isn't doing anything. And then one day, something happened at work, and I don't even remember what it was, but it instantly pissed me off. And I was like stomping around going, what the hell are those people thinking? What's going on over there? And I didn't even realize I started doing this. And all of a sudden,
Wow.
10 seconds later, this wave of calm just swept over my whole body. And I was like, oh my God. I did not even realize that what I had done was I had created an association between this little movement and changing my entire emotional state. And it starts by setting that emotional state first and tying it to the movement. But when you've done it often enough, it works the other way around. I can do this, instantly feel better, and I can do it in the heat of the moment, no matter what's going on around me, and it always helps.
Wow, that's very impressive. I'm going to spend a lot of time with that video, I'll tell you that much. All right, any other questions? No, I think that's it.
Awesome.
I'll pass it off to you, Marie. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much, Allie. And thank you, Natalie. That was incredible. I
Thank you so
am
much.
so grateful for all of your wisdom and these really practical, tangible techniques that you shared and for your vulnerability. And I thought you did an amazing job. Had you not shared your vulnerabilities and your newness to speaking, I don't think anybody would have known that. And
Oh, thank
so
you.
genuinely, thank you so much.
Thank you.
With that said, we do invite everybody to share their feedback on today's session. We also love to hear suggestions as far as future topics and content. So please do scan the QR and give us that feedback, and we'll share that with Natalie as well. And we really hope that you'll stay connected with us. For those of you who aren't already subscribed to our newsletter, we have a newsletter that brings our content into your inboxes once a month. You can find that at revivingvetmed.com/newsletter. And we also send other little tidbits as well sporadically. So please do connect with us, and then you'll never miss when we have another event like this. Otherwise, that will be all for today. Thank you so much again to everybody. Thank you most of all to you, all of our community, for being here. Thank you for everything you do for your patients and your team members and yourselves every day. Take care, stay well, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. Bye for now.